Hello students, this lecture is about vaccination and immunization. In this lecture, we are going to cover the definition of vaccination and some historical background, then principle of vaccination and different types of vaccines. So first, what is the basic concept of vaccination? When a pathogen, a virus or a bacteria is introduced into our body, it multiply and attack our own body cells. This is called infection. So during infection, our immune system play a major role where we have adaptive immunity. In this adaptive immunity, we have B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. B lymphocytes produce antibodies. The antibodies produced by the B lymphocyte detects the pathogenic antigens and they divide rapidly and kill the pathogenic antigens. And during this process, they also keep memory of the particular pathogen, right? And this is how our immune system works during the entry of a pathogen into our body. But this process is very slow. Sometimes if the entering pathogen is so severe that it can cause serious ill effects. So as a result, we need to prepare our body before pathogen gains entry into our body. So where comes your vaccination? So your vaccination is a suspension of either inactivated or killed pathogens or the antigenic protein of a pathogen which is taken orally or injected to provide immunity for that particular pathogen, right? So there is an historical background for this. Edward Jenner is called as father of immunity, where he discovered that the milkmaids do not suffer from smallpox, but they had scabs of cowpox. He transported the material from the milkmaid and injected into an 8-year-old boy. And after some time, he transported the smallpox material into that boy and the symptoms did not appear. He called this process is vaccination. So Edward Jenner is known as father of immunity or father of immunology. Then Louis Pasteur, he discovered the process of inactivation or inactivating the pathogen by preparing vaccines for chicken cholera, rabies and anthrax. Then Emil von Behring, he discovered the process of passive immunization. In passive immunization, preformed antibodies are injected for a quick immune response. This is what is called passive immunization. So for example, in snake bite, the injection that is given to the patient contains preformed antibodies against to snake venom. So this technique is called passive immunization. So in immunization, the inactivated or the weakened pathogens are introduced into our body so that our body immune cells will recognize this particular pathogen and can make memory cells. Whenever the real antigen gains entry into our body, already our body immune cells will respond to this and produces antibodies faster and kill the particular pathogen. This is what is the principle involved in making vaccines. So we have different types of vaccines. Those vaccines includes number one, live vaccines or attenuated vaccines. These are the weakened form of the germ that cause a disease. So these includes your BCG, oral polio, yellow fever, smallpox, chickenpox, rotavirus, MMR. Remember, all these 7 come under live or attenuated. The pathogen, the disease causing organism or a pathogen is not killed here, it is weakened. Next, killed vaccines are inactivated, where here the germ is killed. The killed version of the germ is introduced into our body, right? Those includes your hepatitis A, the vaccine for chicken cholera, influenza, Salk polio. This is nothing but injectable polio, pertussis, typhoid, rabies, pneumonia. Next, toxoid vaccines, where the toxin made by the germ, the infective agent will be introduced into your body, right? So those includes diphtheria and tetanus. Right. So how to remember so many examples? Right. So remember, for this live vaccines we have 7, for killed vaccines I gave 8, and for toxoid vaccines 2. To remember this, I'll give a trick. Let us find out what is the trick. So for these live vaccines, live means I said these vaccines are weakened but the organism is not killed. Those includes BCG, just this is B, oral polio, O, yellow fever, and smallpox, yes. So this is BOYS, boys. Chickenpox, can, C for can. Rotavirus, rock. Right. MMR, music. So there will be live sessions during the live concert, right? During live concert, remember in this way, boys can rock music. Boys can rock music during live show. Remember in that way, your live vaccines means boys can rock music. Next, killed vaccines. We have 8 killed vaccines. So this is hepatitis A, cholera, influenza, shock polio, pertussis, typhoid, rabies, pneumonia. Right. What is the trick? Health care. H for health, hepatitis A. Health care individual. I for individual. Should pick the regular, P for pack of vaccines. Healthcare individual should pick the regular pack of vaccines, or else it can kill the patient. Clear? So remember, for killed vaccines, healthcare individual should pick the regular pack of vaccines. Remember in this way. So these 8, got it. Next, toxoid vaccines. Toxoid vaccines we have only 2, that is diphtheria toxoid and tetanus toxoid. You just remember in this way, this is DT, TT. Easily you can remember for toxoid vaccines, DT and TT, diphtheria toxoid and tetanus toxoids. There is one more classification of vaccines. First generation vaccines. First generation vaccines are the vaccines which consisting of the whole organism, either it is inactivated or killed, and which are prepared by using traditional methods, or your first generation vaccines. So your first generation vaccines includes all these 3. So your live vaccine, because the whole organism is used, this is killed or toxoid, right? Any of this example can be your first generation vaccine. Next, second generation vaccines. What are second generation vaccines? Second generation vaccines are called subunit vaccines. Subunit vaccines. Vaccines which are prepared by using genetic engineering. Vaccines prepared by using genetic engineering or your second generation vaccines. This includes vaccines for hepatitis B and herpes. Vaccines for hepatitis B and herpes are second generation vaccines. Remember, second generation HH. You can remember in this way, hepatitis B and herpes. Second generation vaccines are vaccines which are prepared by using genetic engineering. Here hepatitis B vaccine is second generation. This is hepatitis A vaccine. Remember, hepatitis A vaccine is first generation vaccine. Next, also there are third generation vaccines. Third generation vaccines, we call them as the DNA vaccine. The DNA vaccines, the DNA of the particular disease causing organism is introduced. This is called third generation vaccines, or also called DNA vaccines, and this includes the vaccines for Ebola. The vaccines for Ebola is your third generation vaccine, which is called DNA vaccines. So these are the types of vaccines, like your live vaccines or attenuated vaccines. So how do you remember? Boys can rock music. Next, killed vaccines or inactivated vaccines. How do you remember? Your healthcare individual should pick the regular pack of vaccines, or else it can harm, it can kill. Next, your toxoid vaccines, what are examples? Diphtheria toxoid and tetanus toxoid. Next, we have first generation vaccines, the vaccines which are prepared by the whole organism, either it is killed or live, is first generation. Your first generation vaccines are all these three. Second generation vaccines are subunit vaccines, which are prepared by using genetic engineering, like your hepatitis B and herpes. Next, third generation vaccines are the DNA vaccines. The vaccine for Ebola is an example for third generation vaccine.